All right, we are going to call the July 12th meeting of the Township Council to order. Roll call.
Mrs. Merrill?
Present.
Mr. Steigel?
Here.
Mr. Arcuri?
Here.
Mr. Ball?
Present.
Mr. Berquist?
Here.
Mr. Kozer?
Here.
Mr. Lewis?
Here. All right, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. First item will be approval of the minutes from the June 28th meeting.
So moved.
Any other discussion? In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Special reports, there are none. Audience comments, if anybody in the audience has a comment, not an agenda item, limited to 5 minutes. Mr. Brooks, what a surprise.
Good evening. Yes, I know.
Just a few words again about the pool area. I had the opportunity to spend a few hours last week with one of the original Upper St. Clair council members who approved their pool and community center. And I was really interested in what he had to say, his opinion about how it went. Interestingly enough, I have the same kinds of feelings that he did when they approved it, and he voted for it. And that is, they decided that they were not going to go small. They went big. That was their presumption. If we're going to serve the community and surrounding communities, they felt that it was necessary to spend some money. And they did. Frankly, it cost him his position on council, and several others lost seats as well, because the community was opposed to it by and large, because it was, at the time, a large bundle of money. Now, what has this got to do with our situation? Under the circumstances, I look at our community center, and it hasn't been the success, at least in my opinion, it has not been the success that a lot of people hoped it would be. And I'm thinking that if we would really like to see a pool, aquatic center, and a community center put together, in other words, one central site, rather than having one here and one there. It's a suggestion. I think you might want to get some prices for a bigger facility, and perhaps, again, approach neighboring communities like Norster Bay and Nottingham, and see if they're not interested. Union Township is another potential customer. But I think a joint effort by a number of communities could raise approximately $25 million, which is what that would cost. A full-scale facility, done well, $25 million. Now, the interesting thing about it, as well, is that Upper St. Clair's community center, pool, et cetera, has been a overwhelming success at this point, because they have drawn large numbers of people from other communities. If you talk to some people here in Peters Township, you'll find out that if there are swimmers or they're interested in athletics, a lot of them belong to the Upper St. Clair Community Recreation Center. So it does attract a number of people. I've met and talked with some of them here in Peters. Also, other areas. I've run into some people from Dormont who go there regularly. So it tends to be a magnet for people who are interested in, among other things, the Community Recreation Center in Upper St. Clair. So my point is, if you want to go forward with it, consider the potentiality of doing it on a big, encompassing framework, rather than a small, inexpensive, relatively speaking, method or approach, because it just won't work. People are looking for something good. And the better it looks, the more participation I think you'll find from other communities. So I'll leave you with those thoughts.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, seeing nobody. No unfinished business, new business, resolution adopting Peters Township Library Policy and Procedure Manual.
Yes, before we get started, Lacey Love, our library director, is in attendance tonight, but in addition to her making her first appearance before council is Ileana Logan, our new assistant library director. Ileana is an Athens, Ohio native who, like Lacey, went to the University of Illinois' Masters of Library and Information Science program. As they both remind me on multiple occasions, U.S. News and World Report ranks it the #1 program in the country.
Multiple occasions.
Yes.
Maybe one.
Yes. So Ms. Logan comes to us from the city of Pasadena, California's public library system, where she previously served as a senior librarian.
You live in Pasadena.
Well, she went to Illinois.
My son lived in Pasadena. It's a beautiful place.
It is, yeah.
She heard about the earthquake.
Yeah.
So one of Ms. Love's first initiatives as library director was setting a formalized policy and procedure manual for the operation of the library. The manual that's in front of you tonight is the culmination of those efforts. It codifies past practice. It adopts new policies, such as a patron behavior policy and a makerspace policy that was developed by our new IT reference librarian, Brandon Priddy. And it also incorporates national and county best practices in library operation. So the manual, as you can see from the PowerPoint slide, it really is. It's divided into 5 specific policies: the collection policy, circulation policy, facilities and operation, patron behavior, internet and social media. And in addition, there's an appendix that includes the American Library Association's Bill of Rights, the WAGN staff procedures for circulation and interlibrary loan, forms for both proposing programs and meeting room applications, and finally, it incorporates the township's previously adopted youth protection policy. And I'm going to let Ms. Love sort of answer a lot of your questions here in conjunction with Ms. Logan. One significant change proposed in facilities and operations allowed the use of alcohol at library events, which is currently prohibited in all township facilities. Beer and wine are permitted to be consumed at picnic pavilions at certain concerts, and in both cases, the township does not serve the drinks, but only allows guests to bring alcohol for their own consumption. So that's the only sort of outstanding piece of these policies that I wanted to discuss with you. I'll let you, Ms. Love, is there anything I left out that you'd like to discuss?
No.
Questions of council?
What are the type of events that you want to have alcohol? I'm assuming you mean beer and wine?
Yeah, I just thought it would be nice for, like, if the foundation was hosting some kind of fundraiser at the library to serve alcohol, or, partner with a local brewery or winery to do tastings, different things like that. So it's not even necessarily that the library or library staff would be serving, but outside organizations.
I would be all for it. I'll just think
Would this be in the context of trying to reestablish Taste of the Township, which used to be a very large fundraiser?
So Mara and I have been talking about that, and now that there's more foundation board members and new board members, it is something we've been talking about, yes.
All right, well, I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution number 7-01-21, adopting the Peters Township Public Library Policy and Procedure Manual.
I'll second.
Other discussion?
I'm sorry, you got ahead of me there, Mr. President.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Merrill, I should have asked you first.
Because
I should have known one question wasn't going to be it.
I did, Lacey was Ms. Love was very nice. I sent an extensive list of questions just for my own edification. The only other one that I have a question about, and may be something I think we need to further discuss. You made a point of talking about how people can't use the makerspace to make money. And then you made a point of talking about the fact that we have a youth protection policy. My question comes back to the idea of what kind of liability do we have as a library for tutoring one-on-one in the library? Because you also went through in your policies very clearly who has to be with children when they're in the library.
Right.
So I'm a little not clear on the resolution, because your reply made it sound like we're going to have to work this out. Because you implied that people aren't getting paid because they're school board.
Well, so that's just some of them. So I wanted to address that point separately, because it's it was something that we tossed around and we talked about, and we had looked at other library policies, and some libraries do prohibit tutors that are making money. And we looked at that, but kind of decided that enforcement on staff's part would be pretty difficult, because how do you know, someone can just say, no, I'm not making money, we're just here tutoring. And also, the other guidelines about, you know, having the 2 deep adults for youth programming and things
That's kind of
don't really apply here, because these people are just coming in and sitting at our tables, just like anybody else can do. You know, they're not renting a meeting room, they're not doing anything like that. And so it's just like a parent and a child coming into the library, you know, it's just
Okay,
a tutor
so
and a
even
child.
though there were parts of the policies that talked about how, you know, a family member had to be with a child, or a child of a certain age had to be accompanied,
Right.
someone could walk in with a child, and we don't necessarily ask if they're.
No, as long as they're with an adult, some kind of caretaker guardian.
So I would
Correct.
ask from a legal opinion whether there would be any issues related to that, or because we're a public place, is that fine? Mr. Smith?
I'm sorry. I was reading something else there. Go ahead.
Do we have, as the library, do we have any culpability or responsibility in assuring that the child protection policy is followed if we have an adult come in with a child and we don't, do we need to ascertain that relationship?
Well, and I don't think you can. I think when I was listening to you speak in terms of anybody coming in, it gets a little intrusive as to who are you? Are you for profit? Are you a parent? Are you an uncle, aunt, guardian? I think it's somewhat cumbersome along those lines. Now, I think, I haven't read your policy, but when you do either sign out a room or rent a room, maybe that's when you can establish the relationship and whether the policy has to be implemented at that point. Because seemingly that's the situation where they're maybe by themselves
Right.
more than out in the public.
Okay, so that would be a policy that no one-on-one adults would be in the study room, or, so you're going to figure that out as you go
Yes.
along? is what you're
We
telling
certainly
me.
will.
Are your study rooms, do they have windows? Can you see them?
Yes. All of our meeting rooms do.
Like I said, you had gone into other detail related to parents and kids of a certain age, so I was trying to understand, because that seemed like a gap to me. But
Yeah,
other
I
than
guess
that,
in our mind, it's really no different than a child coming in with like a babysitter, or, you know, something along those lines, because the parent is, you know, the parent is obviously willingly leaving their kid there with the tutor or the babysitter or whoever, so.
And I think if you did have a policy, it'd be easy to run afoul of it and have somebody point to the fact that you know, didn't stop and ask everybody who they were, where they were at. And
Right.
it's impossible. I think it creates something that's unachievable but can be used against us someday.
so again, that's the other thing, is you don't want to invade that person's privacy of why they're there with that child, so. All right, I'll accept that explanation, I just wanted to clarify it because.
Yeah, it is something that we'll continue to think about, though. I mean, especially, like you said, the money-making aspect of it, that is true that does kind of conflict with what we said about the makerspace, so I will continue
Sign
to
them
mull
up as
that over.
friends of the library.
There you go.
There we go.
Okay, anything else?
I have a question about the alcohol policy.
So do I.
Okay. Is it, if any, is it open to everybody? I mean, anybody that wants to rent a room or whatever they need to do, put on a presentation?
No.
Are they automatically entitled to serve alcohol?
No, so I think we said in the policy it would be limited events that the director would have to run by the library board first for approval, which is what it also says
I
in the
read
Parks
this
and
like
Rec
2 weeks
policy.
ago when I got it. It's
So
fine.
no, it wouldn't be open to everyone.
Okay. Mr. Lewis?
My question is, do I have to say I don't approve the resolution because I'm not supporting the idea of alcohol? And I don't object to supporting the resolution, but with the caveat that I'm not in favor of alcohol.
Yeah, I think as the policy is written, you'd have to vote no and
Yeah.
let council know why if you want to. The rest of it, you don't find objectionable, obviously.
Correct.
Okay, anything else?
I would just like to say, Mr. Lewis, that, you know, I'm not a big fan of alcohol at public buildings, but we did it in the park, and that's why I asked that question about whether there's some discretion there. I think, you know, that I understand you probably have concerns, and I sort of feel the same way, but I think that if it has to get run by the library board, and I think that should provide a level of protection or confidence that they're going to do the right thing.
And I'm just being consistent because I was not an advocate or in favor of it in the park.
I didn't vote for the one in the park, but
Well, I don't anticipate that what the library board has in mind here is having a kegger when Santa Claus shows up or anything like that. So,
who knows what's going to be in that milk?
although some parents probably would be in favor of that.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yay.
Okay. 6-1.
Just while I'm here, Paul had asked me to just put together like a 1-minute kind of library update, if that's okay, just what we have going on. So currently the library is holding a mix of virtual and outdoor programming. I'm sure you saw the tent and our picnic tables. The foundation covered the costs of purchasing 8 picnic tables for us and a tent rental for the next 8 weeks. And Public Works did a really nice job at clearing and weeding the area behind the library. They mulched all of it. So it's a very nice outdoor space. I would recommend that everyone go check it out. And so Youth Services has been holding weekly story times out there, some teen DIY programs, and it's been going really well. And then I kind of just wanted to give you our timeline moving forward. So starting next month in August, we have booked library-sponsored groups like book clubs and the genealogy club and things like that, indoors in our meeting rooms again. And then in September, meeting rooms and indoor programmings will be available to everyone. Children's programming will continue to be virtual or outdoors until we kind of have some more information about vaccinations and things for kids under 12. That's kind of a tough situation for us right now because just the nature of family programming and young kids is that they're all kind of together and crawling all over each other and chewing on toys and things like that, which doesn't feel great yet. So we're kind of just waiting on that. But the virtual programming for the kids has been really successful, so we don't feel like that's any kind of issue. Other than that, almost everything else within the library is fully back to normal or on its way. All of the study rooms are fully open, computers, furniture, all that kind of stuff. Summer reading is underway, and we have also booked an author for Novel November with the foundation. They had to skip it last year, but we have booked an in-person Novel November on Thursday, November 4th with Taylor Jenkins Reid, which we're very excited about. So, any questions about anything the library has going on?
Ilana, is that how you say your name?
Ileana.
Ilia. Did you work at the Huntington Library or?
No, I worked at the Pasadena Public Library. I was virtual services librarian for about 4.5 years and started our makerspace, and then I was a senior librarian and I managed 2 branches and the staff and operations there for a couple of years. So I was with the public library.
The Huntington complex is pretty.
It's amazing.
Amazing.
I've been there a couple times, not in the library because I wasn't a researcher. I wasn't
But the
special
gardens
enough,
and
but
everything.
yeah, the gardens are beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is a resolution adopting a policy statement confirming design criteria for residential developments as it relates to existing and future public roads.
Okay, so the public safety merits of this policy were discussed to a great degree at the last meeting. I'm not going to rehash those arguments. I think Chief Grimes, Chief McLaughlin, and from a public services perspective, Public Works Director Joe Herson made their points fairly concisely. But as a practical matter, the policy before you tonight, all it does is codify the existing procedure for the township. And the reason that this has been our procedure is actually because it's based on the Peters Township Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance and also the comprehensive plan. So the Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance establishes that the proposed street system in any new development shall be so located to allow proper development of surrounding properties. Streets in bordering subdivisions or land development shall be coordinated and such a width and grade and such locations to accommodate future roads. And dead-end streets shall be prohibited except for future access to adjoining properties or because of authorized stage development. In the Plan 2020 and Plan Peters 2022, the township's comprehensive plan, the merits of interconnectivity are discussed. That's how the township staff has adopted our procedure in terms of how we deal with residential developers coming forward. And I'm just going to hit a couple elements of this policy just to give a little explanation to council as well as the crowd here. The policy specifically states that there must be at least 2 forms of ingress and egress from any development. That is the minimum, that is accepted, that is expected, and there can be more connections if deemed feasible by the township engineer. With regard to temporary cul-de-sacs or existing dead-end streets, it makes clear to developers that they're required to provide connections if deemed feasible by the engineer, and to eliminate dead-end streets in excess of 600 feet, which is currently prohibited for any new development. So Bethany Drive, for example, would not be permitted in any new development, and if a development would come in, we would want to see that connection made. In situations where dead-end streets are permitted in future developments, the policy makes clear that there will be no driveways exiting onto those streets, and snow removal services will not be provided by the Public Works Department. A great example of that is, if you look on your right here, that's from Old Trail 15. That's Heritage Drive, which is a dead-end street that goes, that tracks?
Yes.
Yeah, to Trax Farm. And then this is Maid Marian Drive in the Sherwood Pond plan. There's a dead-end street there that connects back to behind PV and where the soccer fields are. In both of those cases, there are no driveways on those roads, and snow removal does not happen. This is a sidewalk, just in case I have a feeling someone was going to ask. That's just a sidewalk down to that road.
If there was a home there, would there be snow removal?
No, well, we wouldn't allow that to happen. I mean, we wouldn't allow that to happen under this policy. I mean, if there was a home there, you probably have to do snow removal. The whole point of this policy is to prohibit such things in the future.
So if someone came in with a building permit on a lot like that,
You would
make them orient the house towards the other street?
Yes. Or, as with anything else, they're welcome to come to council for, a bonification or a variance from this policy, essentially. Residential developments that are planned next to adjacent undeveloped parcels shall extend right-of-way and utility easements to the edge of properties, as well as the cartway of the road, as close to the adjoining property as deemed feasible. Great example of this is actually a plan you guys just approved, Sugarbrook, down there off of Sugar Camp Road, and the extension all the way of Piedmont Drive, which is here to Marie, or close to the adjoining property, so to tie in with Marie Drive.
Can I ask a question
Sure.
about that, though? Because
Yeah.
as I read through this,
Mm-hmm.
and I can appreciate the intent,
Mm-hmm.
but in this particular case, you talk about being next to undeveloped property.
Mm-hmm.
The property between that and Marie is a privately owned piece of property that is developed. They have a house on it.
Mhm.
So I was a little surprised in retrospect why you let them do that and have only one entrance. Because you're waiting now for the man in between to sell his property so you can connect to Marie.
Well, I wouldn't say you're waiting for the man in between. You're recognizing that is a large lot that has just a single home on it,
But it's
and that
not
there's
an
potential.
undeveloped property. It's contrary to what you just said.
I don't actually. I disagree with you, because I think that is a large. You're talking about a fairly large lot there that only has one home on it, that could potentially in the future have multiple homes on it if it was ever acquired or something happened. You need to plan for
Well,
it.
any place could potentially happen. I guess I'm trying to understand that plan
Mhm.
in and of itself should have had 2 entrances on Sugar Camp, in my personal opinion, based on what you're just telling us. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that we need a little more consistency from planning, because if that never develops through the other property, if that man never sells, that will be a contained plan for that entire time.
So what happens if Mr. Bakayaki, who owns that piece, decides he wants to subdivide it in half and just sell the back half to somebody else who wants to build a house on it? Are we going to allow him to do that? Like if you just wanted to cut it in half, and let's say someone wanted to build a house on the back end and just run a driveway to the end of that
I'd do a flag wall or
cul-de-sac.
something.
That's a good question. I don't know that we have anything in our ordinances that would prohibit that.
Right.
So if
We're just leaving that potential there. That is an 8+ acre piece of property that could
I
potentially
understand that. I
Right,
understand.
and he could just as easily keep the house on the front half acre and then
carve off some
carve off the
I
other.
disagree.
No, I'm just saying, you're exactly, know what I'm saying, Mark, because you're exactly right. He could in theory carve, two lots out of that and run 2 driveways right down next to each other right into that cul-de-sac.
Right.
Yeah.
It could be a flag lot. no,
Right.
So go on.
The last point I just want to bring up, the policy provides guidance to staff in terms of, and this is probably the only difference from our current practice, in terms of notifying current and prospective property owners of roads and being temporary cul-de-sacs. So we'll start putting on lien letters notice to potential property or to future property owners that they're on a temporary cul-de-sac that may be extended in addition to the signage, and actually a notation on the plan, which you see here from the Sugarbrook plan. There's a notation that it's a temporary cul-de-sac and may be extended at some time. So that's the policy that's in front of you tonight. It's my recommendation that Peters Township Council adopt the resolution 070221, adopting the Peters Township roadway interconnectivity policy.
So moved.
Any other discussion?
I would just like one clarification, and I assume we have a list of all the places we put up the signs that say, please be aware that there could be
Yes.
an extended road through this area. But I walk Windermere a lot. I don't see a sign up at that cul-de-sac.
There's a little-
Further down.
There's a little sign there that we put in that should still be there. It was there at one point. Sometimes they get...
This is my point. I mean, how often do we go around? Because people have a bad habit of pulling those signs out.
Well, and it's something we need to do on an
I
annual
think we
basis.
should do at
perhaps.
least on an annual basis,
That's fair.
not to do them all
Yeah.
the same day, but like every, stagger it out, that you at least make sure those signs are there.
But at the
Yeah.
same,
If they've been taken down, replace them.
but when does our obligation end, though? I mean,
Yeah,
that's,
these signs and these announcements, these are a courtesy. These aren't a legal obligation.
I mean, this is what
I get that.
this is what I don't understand. Like, when you go buy a house, what's the first thing you're supposed to do? You do a title search, right? Title search is going to tell you if you've got any easements across your property, you got anything like that. And the number of times that people come here and say, I did not know that the cul-de-sac could be extended when there's no house at the end of it. I mean, when you buy a house in an area like that, the first thing you should do is go look and see what the recorded plan says.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think people make the biggest
My
purchase of their lives, and they spend more time deciding what refrigerator to buy than doing the work on their house.
You're right, but the point of it is that when you're buying in a newly developed plan, you may presume or assume, and we know what that
You know what happens when you
that
assume.
you're definitely covered because the developers got it figured out. And I will tell you that the real estate people selling those homes are not opening their mouth and telling people. I was in Justified Farms when they built that, when they opened the model. And there was the cul-de-sac because they hadn't connected to Bower Hill. And the woman stood there and said, oh yeah, this will be the dead end. And I
Well,
said, no, it won't.
I can tell you, Monica, based on my profession, what I've learned is real estate lawyers and developers and real estate agents all never lie. They always tell the truth, right? So, but no, we know what really concerns me is if we have this policy that we're going around and we're putting these signs up at all these temporary cul-de-sacs, and let's say one gets taken down,
And there's a reliance.
right, is there a reliance? And if these signs are disappearing, can someone come in and say, well, hey, there was a sign in this neighborhood, but there wasn't one over here?
If you're putting it on a
Yeah,
lead letter,
but
that's
Frank,
the person's in there.
statutorily, you're a buyer of real estate, when they get, they're on notice.
Right, exactly.
Everything that's filed of record.
Right, that's exactly my point.
I tend to agree with Mr. Ball that it's a courtesy. It's not something that we're doing
Because we're required, right.
It's a requirement. I never did like it. I don't think that we should have them. I think it could give rise to a potential liability issue if
Well,
somebody
that's
relied on it. But I mean, it's the market. I mean,
But my point is, if we have them, then we come.
it's just, listen, it's just like sticking that disclosure on a lien letter, okay? You know how many times the buyer sees the lien letter?
Oh, yeah.
0. Because it goes to the title company, it goes to the closing agency, and they make sure there's nothing there, and they put a charge down.
And our lien letters currently say for people who buy homes on private streets, we know that the street you're buying a home on is a private street, and those people still come in and, but we've done what we can on our end.
Plus, the other thing is that would not get picked up in the title commitment because they probably haven't got the lien letter back yet.
Yeah.
And by the time they get the final title policy, it's after the closing.
Yeah.
So to put that on anything, I mean, it is a waste. But I mean, I can understand that. But I always thought that it was kind of not the right thing to do to mark these. I mean, people are supposed to know. I mean, if they don't know, then they're supposed to find out.
Well, I mean, how many times does somebody come in, wants to put a pool in their backyard and wants to put a shed in, and they don't realize that there's a utility easement or a sewer easement going through their backyard?
Daily,
Yeah,
daily.
Or
exactly.
homeowners agreement that they never read.
Right.
They don't know there's covenants in their neighborhood.
But, you know, and I don't disagree with anything you're saying as far as people should be more aware, but at the end of the day, the township is here because of the residents that are here. And I do feel that we need to try to give the residents information. Again, you're right, they can look it up themselves, just like everybody knows. They can look it on the website, do whatever. But at the end of the day, if we put it in front of them, at least we've tried to help them understand. I don't have a problem with the signs in the cul-de-sac. I just,
It's,
you know.
you know, we, as a township, want to do what we can for our residents.
Right, we want to.
I think it's a good faith effort on our part.
Services we can. But, you know, there comes a point where,
Yes.
you know, we need to say, okay, look, this is about all we can do, so.
You know, every time one of these comes up, nobody comes here, maybe 1-2 couples come in support of the connections. It seems to me that the residents don't want the things, so why do we keep pushing them? I understand the public safety aspect of it, but people buy these lots, they know going into it that it's a cul-de-sac, you know, they should be well aware that there's only one way in and one way out. I'm not sure why we're pushing it so much.
I think people still have an expectation of public service even on those streets, and at times it can be, as these connections are not made, it becomes a less and less realistic expectation that we can meet, you know, without that. And beyond that, I mean, we have our ISO rating that we redo every several years for fire, and, you know, looks at roadway connectivity, response times. As our ISO rating goes up, home insurance goes.
I'm told all the time, what's going to lower your rate? My insurance agent said it doesn't do a damn thing with my insurance rate. So I don't know why we're pushing all these things with the ISO rating. The residents don't get anything out of it.
Well, and to my point before with Sugarbrook,
Yeah.
you know, I think that if we're having people come in for a development and there is the potential to put a second, when they build it, put a second entrance, whether it's on the same road or not, do it. Same as McCombs. McCombs, where you live, there's plans that have a big loop around, you know, and it just goes in a big circle.
Yeah.
If they should do it then, not rely on eventually something developing behind it, beside it, above it. So I'm saying that that's also my opinion. I kind of see Gary's point. A lot of people like the idea of a contained plan. They like the idea of less traffic because people speed in the township, and you know, so.
They're going to like that right up to the time somebody's house is on fire.
Yeah.
The fire department came into it.
Actually, ironically, I live in one of those plans, and my neighbor's house did catch on fire. Fire department got there, put the fire out. Similarly, anytime it snows, Paul's doing a great job. Public Works does a fine job. We don't have an issue.
Your plan's designed to eventually connect to Bebout Farm when it develops.
I see the sign every time I drive past it. But
And it's not just for safety either, it's for overall traffic circulation. As we continue to grow, the more these neighborhoods connect, the less congestion we'll have. Look at our older neighborhoods like Giant Oaks that were developed back in the 70s, Camelot, the neighborhood you live in. Do you see any cul-de-sacs in those neighborhoods? Very few.
Just
Very few.
Lancelot.
Very few. They all connect. Camelot connects to Valley Brook in 3 different locations. Giant Oaks connects to Waterdam in 5 different locations. Look at what they did when we were developing back in the 70s. They had it right. These cul-de-sacs cause problems.
So-
Closed plans cause
So
problems.
continue what you were doing in the 70s now. And
Correct.
make sure every development has, when they build it, 2 entrances.
It's hard to do that in certain situations because topography plays a factor.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. In favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
2 nays.
Yep. Yes.
All right. Going down in popularity. Request from Benjamin Marcus Holmes to help Peters Township paved roads in the Ironwoods Estates utilizing funds posted Benjamin Marcus Homes and held by Peters Township.
Yeah, so Benjamin Marcus Homes, the developer of Ironwood Estates, is requesting the council incorporate the paving of Lilac Lane and Ironwood Court into the 2021 paving program. So just to give a bit of history here, as with all developments that come in, they are required to post a security for the public infrastructure that we will eventually take over, so that if the development is incomplete or they're unable to complete something, the township doesn't take any financial loss on completing a storm sewer or completing a detention pond or completing a road. In this case, the developer posted a cash security in the amount of $138,000. So Mr. Zamitis has estimated that the paving of these roads, given the unit pricing we have from our current contractor for paving, A. Liberoni, would be about $70,000 to $75,000. While I can understand some concern about setting precedent here, I think there's several factors we need to come into play. Benjamin Marcus is the second developer on this property. And the initial roadway has sat for a lot longer than is desirable. And if we don't install the final wearing course now, it's going to become critical to maintain the integrity of that road. Finally, with the performance security being cash, we're not relying on a performance bond or something we have to call that would create all kinds of legal hurdles. And Mark, defer to you if you want to add anything to what I just said.
No, I think you hit what I think is the most important point, which is I don't care who paves it, I just don't want to wait any longer. I mean, this has been around since, I think, 2013 was when the initial construction went on. And as Ryan explained, this is the second developer. The first developer was in distress. It just took forever to build out these 20 homes. And I think the plan's at a point now where the asphalt integrity could suffer if we don't get the final wearing course on it this year.
Yeah. Have we ever done this before?
What we would call a performance bond. It just so happens this is cash, so it's easier.
Yeah, well, I mean, we went in and had to finish improvements where developers
I'm talking about
didn't
final
perform. Can't say never. I can't remember an instance.
We talked about some of the reasons.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have the cash in hand.
I just
get
hate
it
the
done.
precedence.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but I'll make a motion that we authorize the installation of the final wearing course on the roads in the Ironwood Estates and plan as part of the 2021 road paving project.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Excuse me, you forgot to ask for my two questions. Mr. Zamitis, in reading the Peters Creek sanitary minutes, there were a number of issues that Mr. Hoskins had with Peters Creek about manhole heights and one thing and another. Do you know whether those have been resolved?
There's been a number of sanitary repairs throughout the plan. I mean, I don't know what letter you're referring to. I'm going to assume.
Well, I'm just saying before.
I think the answer to that is yes, because I know it's been 2 years since he's done repairs. There's still some open cuts in the road that haven't been healed yet that we're going to take care of in this final paving. So I know I know there was a number of point repairs on the sanitary.
Because those should be resolved before.
Absolutely.
And then the second question, will you be managing this project?
Yes.
And should the township...
Not me personally, probably Jason. But
Well, should
engineering.
the township then put on some sort of per diem? We're relieving Mr. Hoskins of obligation of spending his time.
Yeah, that's a good question.
So I'm sorry, I think he's very valuable. I know how much he's getting paid.
We talked about that, and I'm not sure we've resolved the answer to that.
Well, I think you should...
Paul and I have talked about some maybe nominal management fee just to make sure that, like Jim said, like we're not setting a precedent,
Exactly.
we're not creating any kind of incentive for developers to do this.
Exactly.
I think something like that should occur.
I think as a general statement, there's
And
not
that's a
much.
firm bid by the add-on.
Yes.
Yeah, and I can just say the number of developers who posted actual cash for their security, I can count on one hand. I mean, most of them are not going to do that. You're usually going to have a performance bond, which would make us very leery of even touching something like this.
Okay. I'm reluctant to vote yes.
So we is yes in favor of?
We have a motion.
We haven't voted yet.
I'm not saying in favor of, I didn't get the.
I'm sorry.
I don't think we voted.
You didn't vote
I
yet.
called for yes.
There was a vote, yeah.
You made the motion, who seconded it?
Robert Lewis.
And I said in favor of, and then
Most everyone said aye.
I thought so.
I'm recusing myself.
Okay, good.
Well, I'll say aye because I interrupted your motion because I had a question.
Okay, opposed?
Yeah.
Okay.
So to be
601.
Request from Ironwood Estates Homeowners Association to eliminate traffic calming islands.
Just to give a brief history, we have some representatives from the Ironwood HOA here tonight. Just to give a brief history on this, when the preliminary plan for Ironwood Estates was approved, and this goes to show how old this development is, this was back in February of 2014, a condition was placed on the developer that required the installation of traffic calming features along the road in the plan. As part of the final plan approval in April 2014, those 4 traffic islands, which you see highlighted in red, were incorporated into the design. So as part of the final wearing course, these islands would be installed. Once constructed, the islands would be maintained by the Ironwood HOA. So the board of directors, as the agenda says, is requesting these islands not be installed. The islands currently would calm traffic only in the Ironwood Estates plan, but should this plan ever interconnect with the future development of Bebout Farms, they may become a desirable feature. That's why, and I'll let them make their case. If you are interested in not installing these at this time, I would recommend that council entertain that the islands be striped out to preserve their future installation. So, John,
I'm ready to make a motion. I'm going to make a motion that we...
Well, let them speak.
Okay.
yeah. Just come up and say your name and address, please.
They've sat here through this whole meeting, so.
Yes.
That's all right. Tortured enough.
That's all right.
That's true.
My name's Tom Sterling. This is my wife, Jill Sterling. We're 168 Lilac Lane.
We're lot 15.
Yeah, we're lot 15. So they're already in.
Yeah,
Right? They're already in. They've been in since we moved in. We were one of the first houses to move in here in 14 or I think 15, August of 15.
When you said they're
There's a hole in
There's a hole in
The
it.
islands are not installed, there's a hole in
a
it.
cutout circle.
Yeah.
Is that-
Approximately where the island should be. I painted them out in pink, I'm sure you saw
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, you did where you brought them
Before
out.
this meeting, the residents could get a visual on where.
Yeah.
So were they going to be expanded to that pink?
Yes.
Yeah. So where our major concerns are with our neighbors is where they put, this is the second builder. The lot that what you're looking at, I can tell you right now where the driveways are on these lots are completely different than how the builder actually built them.
Yeah.
Actually, some of our neighbors, their back wheels go into the
They
actual
try to pull out of the
island
driveway.
today.
Lot 22, lot 21 and lot 2, the driveways are on the other side.
Yeah.
So on lot 21, his driveway, when he pulls out, he almost has to go into that barrier. So this is
21 comes straight
from
out
the
this way.
original.
And 19 comes straight out of this one right here,
Yeah.
too.
We looked at that when we laid them out, and I think if the decision tonight is made to install the islands, we'd make some tweaks. I mean, I think we could shorten them up and jockey them around a little bit, because there were a couple driveway conflicts that we noticed.
Yeah. Also, I would beg to differ on one other issue, too. Is it Mark?
Yes.
Mark, okay. Is on this edge right here, so we live back here. So on this edge right here where this island is, people park their cars here as they have neighbors, right?
Or workers
So
come by.
what it's doing is it's forcing you to go to the left. So you're going reverse traffic. I went reverse traffic the other day and almost went head on into one of the construction people building the house. He was looking at his phone before he actually saw
Because you come
me.
around a bend, so it's kind of, you can't really see who's coming around. And you have new drivers, you have people, so then you have to go into the other lane just to avoid the traffic that is on the road for anybody coming by. So I think it poses more of a hazard than a help. And really, in our neighborhood, it's rare if you pass one car when you're coming in and out of it. It's such a small neighborhood. So I see the idea of maybe originally wanting them in there, but the road's so small that it's hard if you have to go around that, if there's another car to weave in and out of it, then you're going into the other lane of traffic. So, and everybody in the whole neighborhood is in agreement that they would like them removed.
Well, that, again, that's your current situation. If those cul-de-sacs are extended, if Bebout's out, they start developing Bebout Farms, you're going to have more traffic coming through there. And the idea is we have neighborhoods like yours that get extended neighborhoods, worry about the traffic and the speed that comes through. We're here all the time, and we have to do a traffic study. We go first thing out of a petition, a traffic study, and the end result, you want speed bumps there instead?
No.
Yeah, okay. So what's going to happen?
But you're going to build
in 10 years and say, oh my God, the traffic is so bad.
I don't think
All right. I don't think they're
I don't think we'll
selling.
be alive if that's sold and happens.
You're making decisions on something that may never be done. It goes back to your other discussion where this guy had the lot in between the two neighbors. You have no idea.
So We're not going to eliminate the speed bumps, so at least I'm not.
It's not, they're traffic calming areas.
I mean, traffic calming.
The situation with this plan, the Sterlings are not going to be connected to anybody because they're up above a bridge. It's these two double ones down below that are
Comes in down
proposed
here,
connection to B platforms. Now, that makes sense if you would move those off of the bend like that, but the goal would be to put something in there, maybe a roundabout that we could put right there so people could come out of the other plan.
Well, I mean, beyond that, I mean, the issue is, at least in my mind, is I'm in favor of just not requiring them to be installed at this time, and if the need, and preserve our right to add them in the future. But it seems to me from what these two individuals, Sterlings, right? Mr. and Mrs. Sterling have said that, obviously some of these might have to be shaved or eliminated because you can't have people backing into them.
Well, I don't think they'd have.
I would agree with that.
They might be shaved.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I understand why, because you know why what's going to happen.
Why were the driveways moved from the original?
Well,
It's a different builder took over.
Well,
This is the old original.
those are conceptual,
fictitious homes.
conceptual.
We require homes to be shown on any preliminary final
You
plan.
should when
For goodness sakes, why would you do it that way?
Yeah.
Well, I remember this because I was still on the planning commission, believe it or not, when this plan first, shows you how long ago that was. But I remember the reason we did this was the concern that given the slope of that road going up there, that people were going to pick up speed on the way down. Right. So, but at the same time, if the people who live there, I mean, obviously, we put these in for the benefit of the residents, and if the residents don't want them, then.
I don't want one-on-one Saratoga, I wish I had traffic calming in front of my house.
And again, I just recommend that if the plan is not to install them at this time, that we still stripe them out, to preserve that in the future, should it become a need.
I'll reluctantly agree to that,
Yeah,
but
but if
no
they
way
don't-
I'm eliminating.
My motion would be that we don't require that they be installed at this time.
Yeah.
That we stripe them out, and should the need arise in the future, then we would revisit installing some, all, or a modified version thereof.
Let me just raise one point, and I think Mark can probably answer this. If this is a developer requirement and on his cost, and we have his money to do it, and now we're taking that away, if we install them in the future, maybe on the township.
Well, that was my question. Can we hold a portion of the bond then into perpetuity in case we have to? I don't think we can.
That would be very difficult,
Right.
if not
Because then
impossible.
ultimately it becomes our cost.
Yes.
Because I don't see how.
I don't like that either.
Because if the Bebout Farms developed, I don't think we can force whoever develops that property then come back and put these in.
Well, I don't know why we couldn't hold on to it for a while. It's likely that he wouldn't finish something else. I mean, we have so many, no, I'm serious, the developers, we have money from other developers that have been sitting there forever and a day. I can agree with Mr.
And I understand where you guys are coming from, trust me, I do, but we just deal with this all the time.
Well, it's a condition of us
And
doing this
and we approved this plan, the traffic calming islands was a part of it, and now we're pulling it out, and
Well, there's barely enough room right now. If you widen those, whenever the plows come through, when there's snow, they're not aware of those, so they kind of come right through the center. Now, I know it said, it would be our responsibility to maintain them, but I don't even know what you would maintain them with. You're not going to put flowers
The
or
islands aren't
anything.
in yet, those are just.
There's temporary.
Exactly, but what would you put in there? We're not going to sit and try to water if we put plants or trees there, so it would look weird. What do you put in them?
We grass them, just make them green for now, and then.
And that becomes a responsibility of the HOA to maintain.
But then
more
when it does
money.
get snow covered, they might just get plowed right over. That's what they do
The plan
now.
was approved, it was HOA maintained islands, so you got to.
Well,
there's a good point there.
So how are we going to deal with this?
Well, the plows are a problem. It is when they come through, because they're not worried about it.
I'm going to get rid of them right now. Just maintain the ability to put them in later. If we have to put them in later, it's going to cost us some money.
That's acceptable.
So.
Essentially, it'd be an historic curious motion.
Wait, you're in agreement of eliminating? Hey?
For the short term.
Eliminate them, strike them out.
Oh,
For
What I said,
Yeah, just what Frank
Yeah.
said.
Maybe they beat it, they don't.
I think that's
That's what the...
All right, so the motion is to not install them now with the final wearing course, to strike them out and preserve a right to install them in the future. Okay.
To modify them as need be.
Is there a second for that?
What's mine?
Monica.
Okay, in favor?
Aye. So Mark, those will be paved over then?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Sorry.
We eventually get there. Okay, permit application for Monday's Brewing.
Wait, I want to know,
More
if we have to
alcohol.
put a sign on them all saying potentially, this may turn into a,
This may,
this may turn into an island or whatever.
Put that in the front of the...
Okay, special permit application for
Yes.
Monday's Brewing to host food trucks at Waterdown Plaza.
Okay, so Dr. Samuel Fee of Monday's Brewing is here. He'll be ready to answer your questions. Just to, again, give some background on this. So under the Township zoning ordinance, council can issue a special permit for use of a temporary nature that it deems beneficial to the health, welfare, or proper development of the community for a specified period of time not exceeding 6 months. Dr. Fee of Monday's Brewing, who's a tenant in Waterdown Plaza, is requesting permission to host food trucks and tents for a number of special events at his tap room. He's seeking to partner with food trucks and allow local restaurants to set up tents in the parking lot at Waterdown Plaza to provide food options. So as proposed in his application, and he set several dates, 2 or 3 dates in July, August, and September. It's one day each time is what he's looking for this permission. He included a letter from his from the management company of Waterdown Plaza that you saw there, as well as in his request. So, Dr. Fee, I don't know if you have any, council has any questions, and I'll continue on.
I'm more than happy to answer questions. I will say, as a professor, it's not like me to speak briefly, but it's a long day. I'm also happy to say that my proposal has nothing to do with traffic.
Oh, sure.
Or interconnection. Not directly.
Hopefully not. But we do have, we're in a very nice location as far, to pull this off as far as the parking lot in Waterdown is concerned. And we're pretty much the only place that's open on the weekends, which is what we're looking for, aside from a couple of restaurants further up.
Sir, I missed your open house, so nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I think the idea is a good idea. The food truck thing is getting to be very popular.
Mm-hmm.
I had 2 concerns, not about you personally, but in general. We had a request a while back from a charter school to put a food truck at St. David's, and we denied that because it was competition to restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
While I'm not sure there aren't that many up there, that was an issue. I think we need to begin to be consistent. And then second...
But I thought that was just one food truck, the same food truck all the time.
Regardless
Yeah, that's
of the
not-
variety, I'm not sure that...
It wasn't associated with any special event. They just wanted to pull in and start
They
serving
essentially wanted to
lunch.
set it up almost as a food truck that was essentially almost a stationary business.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a big difference between what he suggested.
Yeah, they get a special permit every year from
The
council for that.
second question I had was related to food trucks throughout the township in plans. And I'm not objecting to those either necessarily. Apparently, this is a thing HOAs are starting to do. If there's something for the neighborhood, call up a food truck, bring it in. I understand we don't ask them to get permits. Okay, so my point being, since this is coming up for another time, could we begin to develop an ordinance that talks about food trucks? Because we asked about that a while back, and there should be something where we have some consistent guidelines.
And it's something, I will say, it's something that many communities have undertaken and struggle with, in terms of how do you regulate food trucks and how do you not harm, like one of the things that Paul mentioned is mentioned to you routinely, and council has at times been reticent in the past to allow food trucks in the community because they do compete with brick and mortar establishments that have made investments in the township. So, it's something that it's a difficult situation that several communities, I know I've sent you articles from multiple other communities in terms of how they're trying to tackle it and ordinances they adopted. It's all over the board. There's really no one standardized policy across municipalities. So the only thing I'd say, if council would choose to issue this permit, suggest you stipulate the period of time for the permit as well as frequency and duration of when the trucks and food tents are allowed. For example, 6 months with food trucks present not more than once a week, with a finalized schedule provided by Dr. Fee to the planning department by, so let's say, the end of the week or the end of next week.
Happily. The one thing I'll say is that we might not even be able to get that many food trucks this late in the season, so it might end up being twice or 3 times.
And you're going to set up on the side? I thought I saw that someplace.
So this is actually, there's been a little change to his property since this picture came in. Yeah, no, I mean, you've now constructed over here a little
Yeah,
bit,
we have outdoor seating over there on the side, and some big concrete barricades so that no traffic could ever go in.
I still think you should put garage doors on that side.
I agree with you, and I'm open to any benefit, any lending you'd like.
Well, I'll make a motion that we approve the special permit for Monday's Brewing, allowing random food trucks.
For a 6-month period?
Yeah, for a 6-month period.
Second.
Well, wait, I would make it subject to the landlord's.
Sorry, that goes with us.
Oh, the conditions put on by the landlord?
Well, I think
that's.
I mean, that's sort of a civil matter between he and his landlord. I think in terms of what we establish is.
I can tell you that Alex and I have talked at length on this on multiple occasions.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
And Mr. Arcuri and I don't have to recuse ourselves because Dr. Fee teaches at our alma mater, right?
Okay, all right. Again, in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations.
All right, we need to set a date for a council workshop for the fire station design,
Yes.
Rolling Hills Aquatic Center, and Peters Township Test.
Yeah, so August 2nd is clearly not going to work. So I have, there's the calendar for July, the week of the 26th, outside of the council meeting Monday night, the rest of that week is an option. And then going into, because at this meeting, understand, we're trying to get, John, we're going to need you there, and the architect for the aquatics facility is going to be coming from Philadelphia, and then we're going to have the architect for the fire station as well. So trying to coordinate across multiple people. I think next week might be a little hard given that schedule. So.
And I'd have to limit you to the 27th and 28th.
So what date are you looking at?
I'm looking at multiple. I'm looking for multiple options. The 27th or 28th would work.
Forget Wednesdays.
Okay, and then
Are we doing this in August?
we could do it in July or August.
I can't do it that week. Maybe later in the week, like the 30th.
Okay.
I
The
can't
30th is
do it
Friday.
at the beginning.
All right.
Oh, the 20.
I have something scheduled.
29th?
So that's not for you?
I can do the 29th.
But
I'm out
Mr.
the
Lewis can't do
29th
the
and
23rd.
August 5th.
So
Okay.
go into the next week of August.
So you're looking at the 16th,
What about
the week of the
27th? Are
9th.
you saying, Frank, you can't make it on 27th?
27th is the 28th.
first week.
What about the 10th, 11th, 12th of August?
I'm okay.
That next week for me.
Right here.
That should probably work for me.
Yeah, that'll work.
Next week's problematic.
Okay, so
10, 11.
What day?
10, 11, or 12 of August.
Again, Wednesdays are for me are out.
So 10 or 12.
Let's just do it on the 10th. We'll just go back.
yeah, I would say you want to avoid the 12th because of the planning commission meeting here. So the 10th,
Tuesday the 10th.
Tuesday the 10th.
Probably KRX, because PC's and Steeler game on the 12th.
Okay. Tuesday the 10th at 7 o'clock. We're going to do this one at 7 o'clock, just given the volume of material we have. So. All right.
We're providing dinner?
We're going to roll up a couple food trucks. But
Yeah, I think my mom actually asked if she's allowed to send cookies again now. So.
Of course, yes.
Payroll bills?
Mr. Chairman, I reviewed the payroll and bills. Payroll for the period $295,000, accounts payable $717, with the largest amount going to Liberoni for Rolling Hills. I move that we approve these as submitted.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Correspondence was a letter from
Yeah, from Washington Hospital.
Yeah, very nice letter. Thank you very much, Mr. Ward. Appreciate that. It was a great program. This was the letter from CEO of Washington Hospital thanking us for cooperation effort that we did back on the vaccinations. Certainly thank the people at the rec center and the people in the township that worked on that, including the fire department, EMS, and everybody else that was involved. It's a really good program. Anybody want to talk about any of the minutes? Okay, miscellaneous.
Zoom hearing board report, but it says nothing happens.
Yeah.
I don't know why they put that as a high bullet point, but.
Okay, next agenda.
Excuse me, Mr. Ball, just miscellaneous. Tomorrow, the rec center is going to be distributing market vouchers for seniors for the farmers markets. There is some criteria they have to adhere to be 6 year older, and then there is an income thing. But if people didn't know, that would be something they should know.
Okay. All right, items for the next agenda. All right, anything else from anybody? Seeing nothing? We're adjourned.